Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be running you through the basics of Premiere Pro. This is going to be the first in our how-to editing series. Noah's going to be covering a little bit of DaVinci Resolve, and I'm going to be covering some Premiere Pro so you can get up in editing and get those awesome YouTube videos out with no hitches. So here's Premiere Pro right as you open it. You'll see you get this panel right here that shows you projects you have worked on. Of course, if you don't have any previous projects, those won't appear. But the important stuff is over here. You'll see we have a new project button and an open project button. Today we're going to be focusing on hitting the new project button. So when you hit new project, you get this panel right here. And right up at the top, we're going to name this. I'm going to name this test. And then this browse button over here to the right, this is going to allow us to find a location on the computer to save it. I'm going to save it on the desktop for now. Select folder, and then all these other settings, with your scratch disks and ingest settings and general, just leave them how they are. That's a little bit advanced for this tutorial, and I'll get into that another day. So once you have your title and your project is put in the location that you want it, hit OK right down at the bottom. And this might take a second. My computer is being a little bit finicky today, but here is the editor once it opens up. And this is a window that you'll probably commonly see. It says the previous audio device configuration is no longer available. Do you want to open the audio hardware preferences? And I would say yes. Don't click don't show again, because this can sometimes come back and bite you in the butt. So hit yes. And now I'm going to choose here, you see default output. Well, obviously my Logitech USB headphones are not working because they say not working over here. And I know that I want to use the Focusrite USB. So I'm going to click that for my default output, and my master clock, that's going to be the same. And then we just hit OK, and you're all good to go. Basically, you want to pick whatever headphone you're using. So now that we're here, you can see we're in the graphics panel actually, and I've set my editor to open up in graphics. But most of you will open the program up in learning, and you'll see a much simpler view right here with only 3 panels rather than the 5 or 6 in the graphics panel. So let's start here in the learning panel. Now I want to just go over some really basic stuff on how to configure your scene, what you're seeing in the editor. So if you click on a panel and you go to the edge, you'll see you get this little drag tool, and you can resize any panel up, down, side to side. For example, my tools over here, I'm going to shrink them down a bit. My audio levels, I'm going to bring them a little bit wider. I want to make my timeline a little bit taller. And my source monitor looks pretty good. That's this right here. Now, you want to get going on importing media. So you can go about this in 3 ways. 1, double click on this Start Import Media right on the middle here. I usually don't like to do that. Occasionally, it can get a little glitchy and your program will fail. You can go File, Import. Again, I don't like to do that. Occasionally, the program will get a little glitch and you'll fail and it'll crash and it's just annoying. So I prefer to open up File Explorer and then drag and drop files. So for today, I'm going to go, let's see, I'm going to grab some videos. Let's go grab some of the latest podcast videos from the Capture the World podcast. All right, so now you'll see a video over here, and you can see how long it is in the bottom right corner. You can see this is 26 minutes and 14 seconds long. And then you'll see the the video file's name right here and what file type it is. And this is an MOV, so you can see that this is DSC whatever.mov. Now let's get into editing. So now you want to make what's called a sequence, and that's where you put multiple clips together and can edit them around and add graphics and cut them, do whatever you want to them. So there are a few ways to make a sequence. There's going over to the bottom right corner of your project panel and hitting the new item, and then clicking on sequence, if I can find it right there up at the top. And then you can use this panel to create a custom sequence. However, that's a little more complex than I want to get into, so I'll show you the other two more basic ways that'll make it a lot easier for you. One, just click, drag, and drop it onto the new item tab right there, and now all of a sudden you have a new sequence, and you'll see a new video popped up, and this has the same duration, obviously, because it's basically the same video, just in a different sequence. And if you watch, if I edit it, now you can see that there is a longer duration there. So that's one way to make a sequence. And another way is to just grab your video and drop it onto the drop here to create sequence. And there is your sequence with your video in it, and now you're ready to edit. So first I want to run through some basic tools. The tool you'll mostly be using is the selection tool, and the keyboard shortcut for that is V. So if I go to a different tool, then I hit V, it'll go right back to the selection tool. And this is the tool that'll allow you to select clips and drag them around on your timeline between different tracks and along each track. And then the other common tool that you'll use is the cut tool, the razor tool right here. And that keyboard shortcut is C, and the razor tool will allow you to cut the video or audio into different segments. And see, if I click V, I go back to the selection tool, and then I can mess around with where I want stuff placed. So that is how you cut and drag around clips, and those are the two most important things you can do in Premiere Pro to edit your video. Now I want to talk a little bit about the sequence here. As you can see, there are multiple tracks. You see video track 1, that's V1, video track 2, that's V2, video track 3, V3, and then the same deal down at the audio, A1, A2, A3, just standing for audio track. And you'll see these little locks, and if you click the padlock, it'll lock that layer, which means even if you're cutting another layer, that layer won't get edited. It'll just edit the layers that aren't locked. All right, so now for some fun little tricks to speed up your editing. If you hit the I key, it'll set an in point, and then you hit the O key somewhere else in the keyboard, it'll set an out point. And then you can set up a ripple delete key, which will delete the video inside that selection. So let's get into some basic editing now that we are here and we have a little bit of knowledge about how this works. So what I'm going to do first is show you some basic cutting and basic rearranging of clips. Say if I want to cut, again, hit my C button, and I can use my little plane pin here, and I can click on it with the cutting tool, and it'll cut right under it, the playhead. And as you can see, now I'm left with this side on the cut, and then over here, this is another video track now. It's cut in half. And if I want to, I can come over here and cut the video, cut the audio, and then I can get rid of this, or I can rearrange it. I can move it over here to the end. I can select and drag all these over here. Now, something handy to know, if you click anywhere on your sequence and drag, that will create a selection box, and you can select however much you want of the sequence. Now, basic shortcuts here work the same. So Control A selects all, Control Z undoes, Control C copies, and Control V pastes. They're all set up exactly the same as you would see on a Windows machine. If you're using Mac, it is slightly different, but very similar. So now that you've edited your video, well, maybe you see that the audio is a little bit low. As you can see, the audio levels on this audio file are really low. So I'm going to want to edit them. But to get a closer look at what they actually look like, I want to enlarge this particular track on the sequence. So what I'm going to do is come over here to the bottom of the sequence. You'll see the little icon to enlarge something. and I'll click and drag down. Now you can see the two different channels, left on top, right on the bottom. And those are your audio channels. And you can see the audio levels in the waveform right there. Now, I can tell that the gain is just way too low on this track, so we're going to need to up the gain. Sometimes just increasing the volume without increasing the gain can be enough, but I want to go and increase the gain. So I'm going to right click on the audio clip, and I'm going to go to audio gain. And here there's adjust gain by, or set gain to, or normalize, or whatever, but what we want to mess around with is adjust gain by, and that's usually always selected. So we're going to adjust the gain by, I'm going to go 6. Remember, adjusting gain can very quickly go out of control, and it can be very crazy and very loud very quickly. And I'll hit OK, and there you can see the waveform just perked up a little bit, and now you can see the levels a little bit better. However, I would still like to go a little bit higher, so I'm going to do that process again, and this time I'm only going to go up by 4 since I already did some gain enhancement previously. And there we go. The waveforms look pretty good. So if you're looking at this video, you can see that it's really flat and it doesn't look good. This was actually shot in a log picture profile. If you don't know what that is, that's fine. It just means that it looks really bad right at a camera. So I'm going to go and adjust this, but we need to know where to go and what tools to use to make this video look better. So I'm going to go up here to the top, and you'll see learning, assembly, editing, color, effects, audio, graphics, and libraries. What I'm going to want to go to is the colors tab. So click on colors, and it'll open up this new window. Now, it might not look the same for all of you because I have made a custom setup here just for how I work. So if it looks different, I'll show you how to adjust it and find the panels that I'm using. So we're going to want to search for the Lumetri color panel. And this is always on the side in the colors panel, always on the right side, if you have not adjusted your colors panel. However, if you do not see Lumetri colors, you can go up to the Windows tab and click on Lumetri color right here. And if it has a check mark, that means it is currently being viewed. If it is not checked, then that means the panel is not up. So once you're over here in Lumetri color, select the clip that you want to adjust the color on, and these first settings under basic corrections are what we're going to want to use. So as you can see, this is a very flat image and there's barely any contrast. So for a beginner, just use your contrast slider and add a little contrast just till it looks good. You don't want to go overboard like that, and you don't want to remove too much contrast and make it look super flat and ugly. So right for this clip, about 46 looks pretty good. Now say if your clip is really orange tinted because you're using some orangey lights, you can use the temperature slider to change the tint, make it colder or warmer, or sit it right in the middle. And for this clip, I actually want to make it a touch warmer, so I'm going to go to 12.8. And then there's the tint. Some images are green tinted, some are purple tinted. Magenta tinted, I should say. And what you want to do is make sure that it looks good. So you don't want too much magenta and you don't want too much green. So if your clip is, say, green tinted, you can move the slider on the tint over towards magenta or vice versa. For this one, it was a little bit green shifted, so I'm moving a little bit towards magenta. Down here at the bottom of this panel, you can see a saturation slider. And for this clip, I want to add a touch of saturation, not too much. As you can see, instead of starting at 0 like all the other features, it is starting at 100. That means 100% saturation. If you go lower than 100, then it's going to get less and less saturated. If you go up above 100, it'll go up to as high as 200% saturation, which is twice the saturation. So you can quickly go really wrong with this panel. So just adjust the saturation to taste. Again, don't do it too much because you can really ruin an image. So now that you've finished editing, you're going to need to export a video. You can't just take this on your timeline and put it on YouTube. So there are a couple simple ways to get to the export panel. My favorite way is to just go Control M, and that opens up the export panel. Occasionally it takes a while. Now, if you notice that it's not opening, that means you're selecting the wrong panel. So you have to go and click on your sequence panel and then hit Control M, and that will open up the export panel. And this is what the export panel looks like. So up here, you're going to want to leave the format at H.264, which it automatically is at. We don't want to change that around. And then here at preset, they have presets for how much compression is going to be put onto the video, or what quality the video is going to be like once you export it. Now, say if you're filming in 4K and you want to post to YouTube, just take the YouTube 4K Ultra HD preset and click that. And now you'll see that it is now in this preset. And all we have to do is click on this output name link, choose the location. I'll put this on my desktop, and then choose the name. So I'll test and hit save. And now you can see the name change to test, and then we'll just hit export. Now you can see that it is exporting. Of course, this video clip is very, very long, and that's why it says 1 hour and 23 minutes remaining for the export. So if you have a shorter video or a faster computer, it'll decrease that time, or vice versa. What about Premiere do you want us to cover? Leave your request in the comments below and we will cover it. All right, so that is the basics of Premiere Pro. I hope you've enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next video.